Welcome back to the Half Palmy, everyone. My name's Josh Liston, and I'm here with comedian Oliver Hunter. How you going, Ollie?
Good, Josh. And also, you should call yourself a comedian. I think comedian Josh Liston is more than acceptable. So, we're two comedians that are doing a podcast.
I just thought I'd give the audience
we're such a unicorn.
chance.
Yeah, we're such a unicorn. Two comedians doing a podcast. Yeah, but anyway.
Absolutely unheard of. So, Today we're talking about something which I guess is pretty timely, pretty topical. We're talking about Christmas.
Yes.
But before we get to some Christmas chat, I just wanted to ask Ollie, have you been anywhere this week on the comedy circuit, being comedians, that you would like to tell us about?
Yes, I'm back doing a couple of gigs. I have done a couple of spots. The baby that we've talked about in the first few episodes has arrived, as you know, Josh. But for the people out there listening, the baby has arrived. Little boy, so little Ziggy is here. And I had some time off while he arrived. But I was with you in Wagga at our friends Dane and Eleanor's gig, Riverina Comedy Club, one of my favourite spots, and had a good time. I don't know about you, Josh. You were in the audience and you were the Uber driver for the night. I appreciate that, as always.
I feel like I got paid in company, though. Definitely didn't get paid in cash.
No.
So
didn't get paid in any currency that actually matters. But yeah. But no, had a good time. There's always a good spot there. Headliner was Cameron James. Lovely dude and very funny. And then, I was at the following Monday. Was at a spot I have done many times, Local Laughs in St Kilda, run by Janet McLeod, who's, again, the queen of, I think I call her the queen of Melbourne comedy, and many would agree. She's run the same gig at the same venue on a Monday night at the local tap house in St Kilda for over 20 years, which is the longest running room by the same person in, like, I would think, Australian comedy history. So there you go. That's
unbelievable.
Yeah, to run a weekly show by yourself, like the same person for 20 years, is crazy. I've ran a monthly show, and it's on a hiatus after 2 months. So, like,
yeah, I get it. I've been running an open mic for nearly a year and a half-ish, a bit longer than that. Yeah, and I've actively been trying to get out of running it for at least the last 3 months and get someone else to do it. And thankfully, I have found someone that's going to take that over. We'll probably announce that in the future. But every week, other than maybe I'm assuming when she's overseas for different things like Edinburgh, and then I'm assuming the show still runs, or maybe it doesn't. So she'd still have some hand in making that happen every week for over 2 decades.
Yeah,
like, not even Neighbours and Home and Away have that level of strike rate, Ollie.
Yeah.
They take 3 or 4 months off a year.
Yeah. And I was at, this was a little while ago, but I was at her 20th anniversary show, and it had like the heavy hitters on that lineup were like, Tom Ballard, Geraldine Hickey, Celia Baquola, Sammy J. Like, it was a huge lineup and it was so cool to see that all these acts, nearly half of them, even 75% of them were like, oh, this was my first ever spot. So they're now like household names, like these heavy hitters. And Janet gave them their first ever spot in comedy. Like, for some of them, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Sammy J, or they were on the first ever show. So 20 years ago. So to have all that come full circle, and for these people still to be doing it, and doing it well, I would say, especially like a Geraldine Hickey or a Tom Ballard at the peak of their powers comedically at the moment. Like, it's just so cool to see that an individual can have such an effect on a art form in a city. Like, it's crazy.
Well, we were talking about Dane and his partner Eleanor that organised the Riverina Comedy Club in Wagga. Obviously a much smaller market, but I don't think, and not 2 decades, we're talking half of a decade. But I would say that that's another example of 2 people that have influenced a comedy community, and unlike a Melbourne, created it from literally absolutely nothing.
Yes.
And built it into this special thing, because there's a lot of us, and maybe not yourself, Ollie, because you'd been going for quite a while in comedy, but for me, I will always remember that's the first time I truly felt like I crushed at a gig. Was the first time I had the chance to do their club in Wagga. And whether I mean, the room is so generous and so warm, I probably half crushed.
Yeah.
But it will always feel extra special to me because that was the first time I can ever remember thinking, oh, I can actually do this.
Yeah.
At the moment for 5 minutes only, but I can go pretty well for 5 minutes, and this room is special, and I got to be part of that.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if I've mentioned it on here before, but I credit Dane and Eleanor for me not quitting stand up off the back of COVID.
Okay, wow. Right, you haven't mentioned that, so I know we're going on a tangent here, but let's talk about that, because I think there'll be people out there, particularly if they're listening because they know who you are, that might be shocked to hear that.
Well, I think off the back of COVID, as we all know now, it's 2020, everything got shut down, and the comedy festival was the first big thing to go in March 2020. And then obviously off the back of that and the COVID lockdowns, I didn't perform for the 8 months, 6 months, March to October. And I wasn't a professional, I'm a semi-professional comedian, I guess, still. So at that time I was, you look at some of the bigger acts and the professionals like your Will Andersons or whoever, they obviously were also stopped, but they knew that they would get back into it eventually, and that was their job. So they would make it work. It would happen again. But when you're an amateur or semi-professional comedian living in Albury at the time, you start to wonder if you'll ever do this again, or whether you'll have the drive to do it again, or there'll be the physical opportunity to do it again. So I remember October 2020, Dane and Eleanor got to put on these theatre shows in Wagga, like at the Civic Theatre in Wagga, and got the headliners down again, and it was a lineup show, and then I remember doing this theatre of all 300 people in the theatre, and again, crushing, and you're like, oh, I can still do this, and then that was that, and
wowzers.
And if I can do it, if I can do 5 minutes after 8 months or 6 months off, then I knew that we're back on here. Whatever that meant at the time, but I knew I was back on. And I did hear a line, a clip that I think last night. Mike Birbiglia is a US comedian, podcaster. He was on his podcast with a guest, and they said, the guest asked him, they said, oh, do you ever want to quit? You've been doing it 25 years and you're a pro. Do you ever want to quit stand-up? And Mike said, quite interestingly, I want to quit all the time. I have this feeling of I don't want to, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And he hasn't, because he's a headliner and multiple specials and podcasts, very successful. But I did find that interesting that even a pro of that level goes, oh yeah, I think about quitting all the time. So I think that what drives us as comedians, that there's that bit of doubt or that question of what is this? But I think for me that also does drive me in some elements as well.
I can't remember who said it. One of the big American comedians said, it's literally the only art form where your history and your back catalogue counts for nothing if you're having an off night. Because it doesn't matter obviously there's some level of forgiveness if it's your audience and they've come just to see you, but you can't rely on anything that person has seen before, like a band can a famous song. Like if you're having a bit of a rough set and you're Metallica, you can just play Enter Sandman, Master of Puppets, and Nothing Else Matters in a row, and it wouldn't matter how bad the set had gone. Like they could have, blown up half the stage with pyro and lost all their guitar amps. If you played those songs somehow, the whole audience is back on board. You don't really have that as a comedian at any level. And that person was talking about it in terms of when you go back to day dot and start building a new act, like for that person, probably a new hour. So the failure is like going right back to day one. You're better at knowing what's good and what's not, but there's no guarantees, and you've got to rebuild everything over and over and over and over again.
Yes.
Just to keep a career going. And if you're a well-known actor at the top of your game, you're introduced as the person from blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
with these awards. And yeah, not like I don't know whether that's how people introduce comedians. Oh, you remember that great special he did 10 years ago? No one introduces people that way. So
No, you have to keep putting out stuff and keep writing jokes. Whereas, I think in the acting world, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck put out Good Will Hunting 27 years ago. Great movie. I love that movie. But like that still gets brought up as like a linchpin and as like a marquee thing. And
they've been writing the tales of that coat for 2.5 decades.
And as they should. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a classic movie, but I'm not sure that there's the same level of forgiveness from an audience. Like they might want to hear, that's the joke he said on the internet. I loved hearing the whole thing.
Yeah.
But if you went out and did the exact same thing someone had seen half a dozen times, I'm not sure whether they're going to be that interested. So
yeah. There's probably only one guy now left in the comedy world that gets away with that idea of not producing a new act every year, every 2 years, is probably Seinfeld.
Yeah.
But the rest, even guys of the generation before him, and especially younger comedians now, like, you have to keep putting stuff out because people will watch it.
They're absorbing it at an epic clip. I know. Yeah. I heard Brian Regan, I guess, is like the comedian's clean comedian. He's like the Seinfeld that comics like. But, and he gets people actually like give him requests because he's got hours and hours and hours of classic stand-up. He could do a whole act of requests. But I've heard him say that sounds good on paper, but it's not like playing a song where you're in a band and you're feeling the vibe and there's other people at the same time doing it with you. If you're the person who has to go out and say all the words over and over and over again forever, you get bored of it yourself.
Yeah.
So,
and it's not a comedian can't throw to the crowd and go, all right, you guys sing the chorus. Like,
I'm pretty sure if you're like Seinfeld and you're telling a classic joke, he's probably the only person that could just hold the mic up to the audience and they finish the punchline.
Yeah.
Like a Taylor Swift move.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much in life that's more epic than throwing to the crowd and every one of those people screaming the words to a song.
I can't imagine the feeling of that as the band too, or the singer just going on. They know the words. Like,
I could tell you the feeling of people in the audience saying they've heard your song and then still not singing it.
Yeah.
I can tell you what that's like. That's every band pretty much ever, unless you're famous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, your album's really cool. I'm looking forward to tonight. I'm not going to sing one word.
Yeah.
But
or really show any interest.
Yeah. Stop trying to sell me a t-shirt. I'm not interested.
Yeah. So, a bit of fun.
Something that is interesting is Christmas. Let's talk Christmas. Hit me with your favourite top 5 Christmas foods, Ollie.
So I'll go 5 to 1. I think that's how we've done the other top 5s.
Yes.
So I'm going to so I've done Christmas lunch foods, and I've also encapsulated all elements of the lunch, including desserts. So
you have to
going beyond the plate of the main course. That's my point with that. So number 5, I do love a bit of nice roast pumpkin, right? And when I say roast pumpkin, I mean it's got to have. I don't know about you, Josh, but I can go skin on and off. I think I do prefer when it's skin off, but I can get on board when the skin's left on. So I'm happy to go either way. But I think for me, it's got to have a bit of charcoal-y, bit of crunch. Is when if it's too soft and it's sort of you're working. Sometimes when roast pumpkin isn't done well, it goes between roast but also just like steamed, and the steamed pumpkin doesn't belong on the plate of a Christmas lunch. I'm gonna die on that hill. I'm willing.
It's a hill worth dying on.
Yeah. So number 5 is a bit of roast pumpkin for sure. Number 4. It has come up in a top 5 in the past, I believe, but I'm going to bring it up again because, again, a hill I'm willing to die on. Just generally, gravy. I love gravy. It's the thing you can just pour on everything on the Christmas lunch plate. So number 4 is gravy, and I just love it as a sauce, a condiment. It has come up, I think, in our sauces and condiment top 5 in an earlier episode. But I just love it and what it brings to the table. So yeah. And no comments there, Josh. I was
sorry. I was actually just dreaming of gravy. I had my eyes closed. I apologise.
All right. Number 3, roasted potatoes, and this you can throw some gravy on there, and you're in for a real good time. So I think 2 of the best roasted potatoes are when similar to pumpkin, there is a bit of a crunch there. Absolutely. So I think that's a no-brainer. Roasted potatoes. Number 2 is cauliflower and cheese sauce. So I've always loved that. I even love that outside Christmas time. So whenever I hear there's a whisper of a roast happening, I always try and angle for cauliflower and cheese sauce. It does something to my brain and body. So that's number 2, cauliflower and cheese sauce. Before we hit number 1, I thought I'd give an honourable mention to lamb and mint sauce. I didn't throw a meat into my top 5, but I think my favourite roast meat is a lamb and mint sauce. That really gets my taste buds up and about. So yeah, and I do love a dishonourable mention in these top 5, so I will give a dishonourable mention. Brussels sprouts. Whenever I see them pop up a Christmas lunch plate, I start to wonder what else is happening that we need to know about. So I also think Brussels sprouts on any plate ever. I don't know what do you think, Josh, but they have a dirt flavour to them that cannot be shaked.
I actually use them as a filter, and I agree about the dirt flavour. It's one of the main reasons I don't buy anyone in my family a present, because if I saw any of those people then go and eat a Brussels sprout, I would feel bad about having given them the present.
Okay.
So for me, it is so I could basically filter who I'd like least in my family on that particular day.
I don't, and like Brussels, how does the word Brussels get involved in the vet, like sprout? Like, because Brussels, is that a place that's a city in Belgium, yeah?
I think so, but I'm not sure if it's really indicative of Brussels itself.
No.
Because the sprout is cultureless and overly dense.
Yeah. Whereas I'd imagine Brussels in Belgium, you've got some nice chocolate, it's like open air, and probably mountains are involved. Nothing relates to the sprout less than Brussels in Belgium.
Exactly. It's a really misguided sprout.
I feel like the more sort of more relatable term for name for the sprout is potentially like a Lavington sprout. I feel like to throw up an Uluru reference there, Josh. I feel like a Lavington sprout. So number 1 is I mentioned desserts would be involved, and my number 1 is Pavlova. That is my favourite dessert of all time. And it is obviously synonymous with Christmas. Just love it. My mum makes the best pavlova I've ever eaten in my life. And it's just meringue. Then you throw on the cream and the berries. And then it's my highlight. It's my request for Christmas every year. I love pavlova so much that I substituted in for a cake on my birthday. So if I'm ever if I'm with my parents for my birthday, I always requested pavlova instead of cake. And on my birthday's in January, so it's always like people are still in a bit of Christmas holiday mode. So it's not hard for mum to knock up another pav at the time. So yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't have that midwinter pavlova avoidance thing going on. It's summer.
Yeah.
It's a good time to be in the kitchen with a fan on or something and just knocking out a pav.
Yeah. I mean, around that Christmas, New Year time and my birthday, if a good year, I can have, there's 4 pavs that get made. There's the Christmas pav. Mum has made it a bit of a thing to make a New Year's Day pav. And then there's a birthday pav. And then occasionally my brother, his birthday's a week later on the 13th of Jan, we can just have a pav just because. So, yeah.
With all this variance of pav, is there also like some kind of fruit variance? Does she mix the fruit choices up depending on what pav it happens to be, or is there a consistent fruit choice?
Well, I think there are some variations. So you can have your blueberries and raspberries and the cream. But then if you want to get a bit freaky, you can throw a bit of kiwi fruit on there, some passion fruit.
Nothing elevates fruit more than a pav though.
Yeah.
Like average fucking gutter trash fruits that no one's eating at the rest of the year. You throw them on top of some pretty much puffed up sugar.
Yeah.
And you just get it in my face.
Yeah. I don't really have kiwi fruit any other time of the year. But
and nor should you.
Yeah.
I don't know where to go from there, but to give you my number 5. So I will give you an honourable mention because I like to do mine before the 5. This is a really specific situation and it's not something I like, but it's anyone in any form of a trifle that gets delivered to my dad on Christmas Day. Because no one likes anything more in the history of food than he likes a Christmas trifle.
Okay. Yep.
Nothing we eat that day and how much we like it is on the same scale as him when he takes the first bite of that trifle. So that's an honourable mention basically to him that's pretty much the only thing in life I've ever seen him truly enjoy. So my number 5, and the reason I bring up the old man is, and this is contentious, I've said this on the internet before and had people challenge me on this. My dad in the last 10 years, and mind you, he's 81 years old, he has mastered the Christmas roast potato to a level that I didn't think was conceivable. I grew up with reasonable cooks in the family. Everyone was reasonably good, particularly at that traditional kind of roast sort of meal. And out of nowhere, he just started experimenting with how to cut the potatoes, how long to cook them for, temperature, amount of oil. And I would more than pretty much be happy if that was all that I got to eat. They've reached that level. You can forget about everything else. Just give me a stack of the old man's roast potatoes, 2022/23 style. Every year he takes it up a notch. So that's my number 5. The only time I've ever got more contention from people on the internet is when I claim that I have the ultimate Vegemite toast. And I'll put my Vegemite toast up against anyone's, and I pretty much would have money on myself that mine's better. That upset people on the internet also. It's amazing the things that people will challenge you on.
Yes.
So, number 4, and this can go both ways, the Christmas ham. It can be either my favourite part of the meal or my least favourite part. And I think it has to do with what I would call the gravy elevation. If the gravy is unbelievably good quality, it can lift a ham and together they can fly. But if the gravy's just average and the ham's a bit average, it's the one part on my plate that I take because my dad forces it on there and I don't want it.
Yeah.
But I think if it's optimized, it's number 4. Number 3, I'm going to go to the dessert. This is where we go back to our ice cream choice. This is where the Buller vanilla comes out once again as the pinnacle part of this meal. That and a decent Christmas pudding.
Yes.
And then a little bit of actual homemade custard. So those 3 things together. Any of those things other than the ice cream, like the custard could be shit. You can always get a bad pudding, but the ice cream kind of, once again, is an elevation factor. I'm relying on a lot of off-plate things to lift what's on the plate here today.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say just that. Go, sorry.
No, I just to bring it back to you. I do love the image of you getting some non-consented Christmas ham. I just was like, I've got to eat that to keep the peace with your old man.
Everyone's saying a Christmas prayer, and well, maybe not in my family, but if they were, I would be praying for high quality gravy before anything else.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to probably be a little out there for people, but I'm a big fan of the roasted carrot, which is something I rarely ever eat, or pretty much never eat other than Christmas time. and I want it to be cooked in the same pan as the turkey or chicken, depending on which meat we're having. If that's cooked in any other apparatus and it's not actually straight in there with the meat, I'm out. But it's right up there with the potatoes as the two things I'll have on my fork before anything else.
Yeah. And again, you're relying on the carrots to be cooked in the juices of the chicken, turkey. So you're again another thing that you're relying on outside influence to elevate said carrot, which I find it fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the number one food, and this is way out there, it actually doesn't occur at Christmas. My favourite moment with the whole Christmas meal is beating everyone the next morning to the leftover turkey and having a grilled turkey and cheese toasted sandwich for breakfast.
Yeah.
And that relies on everything, all the hard work from the day before to make that possible. And I just get in there early. Don't even wait till lunch to have leftovers. I'm having that for breakfast leftovers. And if that turkey was primo the day before in that sandwich, fuck. It makes me want to go back to bed, but not to go to sleep. That's how good it is.
Yeah.
So there's a delayed satisfaction factor in my Christmas lunch because I know that the next day I'm going to almost like the meal even more.
Yes. It's a bit like cold pizza.
It's a bit like cold pizza, but I'm having to fight off my family to get it.
Yes.
Like there's a victory, like a victory thing in there that I beat you to this and I'm getting the best piece of turkey on my sandwich.
Yeah. You go on a war with your family the next day and you have to do some good recon and establish your position.
It's a cold turkey war though. They don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
It's not public. It's all subterfuge.
It's all in your head.
It is. Yeah, so they're my top foods. So I know there was a few caveats in there, but I think overall, if each of those things are near the mark, it's definitely my favourite 24 hours of eating for the entire year.
Yeah, 100%. I think, I guess with my foods that I mentioned, especially cauliflower and cheese sauce, I don't allow there to be leftovers.
So you're just drilling it all on that day.
Yeah. Pavlova is different. You can let the Pavlova be the next day.
Let's talk about the half-life of a Pav, because that is one thing that the variance between fresh, like the Pav's ready and it hasn't half collapsed, and eating it a day later, there feels like a variance to me in texture. But I'm no Pav expert.
No, it's a different experience having the Pav the next day because the meringue gets softer and it's chewier and but they're both great. I think that's my point. And as a Pav connoisseur and a Pav lover for many years, they are very different experiences, and you can prefer one over the other. I do prefer the crunchier meringue, but I absolutely do love and appreciate the next day Pav where the meringue gets a bit softer and spongier. But yes, so I think, and my mum also does it really well where she won't put the cream on the whole thing sometimes because she'll know that you having cream on a Pav that's, the next day can be a bit funny. But yeah, she'll dress the whole thing up when we know the whole thing will be eaten. But when we know that there'll be leftovers, that's a blank canvas of a Pav, and then you can put cream on it the next day.
So those are great top fives, and we'd love to know your top fives. Let us know before Christmas what you're most looking forward to. And if you want, you can throw your family under the bus too and tell us what you think's overrated coming into Christmas.
That's a whole other discussion itself. What's overrated or what's unnecessary at Christmas time.
You can let us know. I'm at Joshua C. Liston on Instagram, and Ollie is at Oliver_Hunter_95.
That's correct, yes. Hit us up. We don't have a dedicated Half Palmy pod page, and I think we won't bother with that. Hit us up directly, and we will take on board your feedback. We appreciate any feedback and any comments or thoughts you have. So looking forward to that. So we'll see you next time.
Righto, catch ya. Bye-bye.